Is this the best AI coding assistant? In this short video, I want to share with you my impressions of an AI coding assistant that I've heard a lot about lately, but I didn't really tap into it. I didn't research it, and I'm pretty amazed by the features and the capabilities. So I wanted to share it with you guys. So before we dive into it, and I will show you how it differs from other AI coding assistants, let's share a bit of context. In recent videos, in the last 5 or 6 months, you guys have been following me, or even if you haven't been following me, you know that AI coding assistant is a landscape that is rapidly growing. There are two types of AI coding assistants, setting aside the chatbots, so using Claude via the UI, or using Claude via the app, or using OpenAI via the website, etc. So setting aside the chatbots, there are people that use IDEs such as Windsurf or Cursor. These are basically forks of VS Code. They look like VS Code, but they are basically AI assistants that are baked into the IDEs. So let's open, for example, Windsurf. Let's see. Let's open a new window. And we can open a new folder. We can start a conversation with the AI coding assistant and tell it exactly what we want to build. And it has like somewhat agentic abilities because it can read the code base, it can run commands in the terminal, it can analyze the errors in the terminal or in the code base. Let's give an example. Can you build a Next.js to-do list app for me? So I told it what I want to build. Obviously, you can select different models over here. You can paste images in order to use screenshot, basically use GPT with vision capabilities in order to analyze the screenshot. So as you can see, I gave it this prompt, very basic prompt, and then it started saying, I'll help you build a modern Next.js to-do list application. It wants to initialize the project, npx create next app, basically building the boilerplate. And afterwards, whenever, it can start building the code. If I need to make any adjustments, it basically can go over the whole code base, adjust all the relevant files. It can also edit specific lines of code, etc. So it is very powerful. These are the IDEs. So Windsurf is one of them. Cursor is the other one. Windsurf is a bit more, it's pretty new. Cursor has been around for a few months. So I think more people are using Cursor, but in my opinion, my humble opinion, Windsurf is better. Anyway, so these are the IDEs. And on the other hand, we have the VS Code extensions such as Cline. And if you guys have been following me or have been doing any coding with AI coding assistant, you probably heard about Cline, recently known as Claude Dev, which is basically a VS Code extension. This guy, you can write whatever you would like here, and it just fulfills your request. Recently, the Cline team has added the ability to auto approve tasks. So basically, if you ask it to do something, it can just start doing many different tasks automatically without asking the user for approval. Obviously, there are specific cases in which they do require the user approval, even if you have the auto approve on. And the extension has ability to connect to different API providers, OpenRouter, Anthropic, OpenAI, DeepSeek, etc. And you can provide custom instructions, etc. So Cline has been very popular. I think it's the #1 in the leaderboard in OpenRouter. Let's check OpenRouter. Let's see the leaderboard. Yes, Cline. You can see here how many tokens were sent in this month. So you can see 625 billion tokens sent via Cline and 350 billion sent by Roo Code. Roo Code is the tool that I want to share with you today. I actually don't know Silly Tavern and Light LLM. It's always a good thing to come over here to Open Router and see what other people are using, because you know the wisdom of the crowd. If you see something that is on the rise, you should check it out. Never heard about this guy. Anyway, so let's go back to the presentation. So many people told me about Roo Code, and I knew it was just a fork of Cline, so I kind of overlooked it until I decided to check it out. Before I move forward, just a friendly reminder or a plug. If you guys are interested in more content about AI agents or automations, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And I also have a weekly newsletter, which is called No Fluff. You can find it at nofluff.online. Just fill out your email, and I'm going to send you once a week 5 bullet points related to AI agents, research related to automations, business related stuff, and some stuff from just real life experience and observations. I throw in a quote, usually from Stoicism or something related. Anyway, check it out at nofluff.online. So moving forward, Roo Code is a fork of Cline. Cline is open source, as you guys probably know. Basically, what it means that anyone can see the code base of Cline and anyone can fork it, just duplicate it and start adding more features and improving it. And this is what the Roo Code team is doing. And many friends of mine who are not familiar with the open source community often ask me, what is the point of opening the source code, especially if you're looking at this from a capitalistic perspective or a for-profit perspective. So I wanted to, and this is also something interesting in my opinion. So first of all, before we dive into Roo Code and the benefits of using Roo Code, let's first of all unpack why it might make more sense to do stuff open source, because I don't know if this is the strategy of the client team moving forward. A huge respect to Saud, the founder. Don't know what is their plan moving forward, but as you can see, Roo Code is taking a chunk of their market share, and I think this is rapidly growing. So let's say this month they took like 50%. They are 50% of Cline, and let's see this week, it's more than 50%. It's a bit more than 50%. So perhaps there is a trend of more people moving to Roo Code. Anyway, let's go back to this table because it's fascinating in my opinion. So this is basically a comparison between open source and closed source, or not open source, and these are the factors. And here's the breakdown of why you should build open source and why you should build closed source. So market reach and adaptation. In open source, there is a lower barrier to entry, which encourages rapid adaptation and widespread use, and it builds credibility through community and trust and transparency. Everything is wide open. Anyone can see the code, so it builds it's easier to gain trust of the customers. The benefit, on the other hand, if you're closed source, so you can target specific niche or enterprise segments with exclusive features that you don't need to expose to the whole public. Revenue and monetization. So monetization often is being via add-on services, premium features, etc., and it requires creative strategies beyond direct sales. I cannot disagree with this, but by the way, this table is mostly generated by OpenAI O3 Mini High. On the other hand, let's just skip this. I don't agree with this. So development and innovation, community contribution can accelerate feature development and bug fixes. And this is something amazing in the open source community. Whenever people are excited about the project, many people start contributing to the project. As you can see here, first of all, people are sharing any issues that they have encountered. And over here, let's open this. issues that people have encountered. And over here, we have people just adding and contributing to the project with more ideas and stuff that they have built. So for example, fix input box revert issue and configuration loss during profile switch. So this was might have been contributed by the community. And in all the open source projects, not in all of them, but very often you have at the bottom like images of all the contributors. So going back here, so in open source, you have very fast feature development because if many people are excited about the project, so to just build. On the other hand, when you're not doing open source, when you have a when you're doing closed source, you have full control of the roadmap and the quality. So innovation is driven only by the internal priorities and not by the public. When you have an open source project and people want to build a specific feature, they will build it. So this is actually a benefit, in my opinion, for the open source. In terms of, let's skip the IP, competitive advantage. This is interesting. So on one hand, if you're open source, transparent development can build market goodwill, and community engagement might lead to rapid iteration, but also exposes ideas to competitors. On the other hand, if you close source, so it keeps the trade secrets hidden, creating a barrier to entry, and exclusive features can be maintained as a competitive differentiator. This is also important. In terms of brand trust, so when you're doing open source, so openness fosters credibility and can position your brand as community focused and transparent. And this is something that I really see with Cline. The community is very vibrant. They have a very good Discord channel. It's very vibrant. Many people share ideas, share suggestions, and because it is open source, it has, I think, I don't know if it's a causation or correlation, but it feels like because it's open source and it's a somewhat community-led project, people are very positive and they are not poisonous and not, they are critical, but everything is done in a very positive manner, which is very interesting. On the other hand, in terms of brand and trust, when you have a closed source project, it can be very polished. Proprietary product can signal quality and exclusivity. However, lack of transparency might deter some users. I'm not sure if it's so I mean, it might be more crucial in specific verticals such as development, but for other SaaSes, I'm not sure it is so crucial to open source. I mean, most of the companies don't open source. Let's skip the licensing. Security and quality, this is very important. So broad community review can lead to faster identification of vulnerabilities and improvements. Basically, your users or your QA testers, so whenever someone from an open source project that is very popular launches a new feature, if something is missing, something isn't working, people are immediately going to raise a flag, open an issue in GitHub, and let the team know, the contributors and the builders know. On the other hand, since everything is open source, it can attract malicious behavior because people can easily find vulnerabilities. When you're building closed source, security is managed internally, reducing the risk of exposing vulnerabilities to competitors, but it requires robust internal team audits, and obviously it requires allocation of QA and red teaming, assuming that you need red teaming. So this basically needs to be taken care of internally. In terms of marketing, let's skip this. So there are pros and cons for building open source. Really depends on the context. Many people say content is king, but I usually say that context is king. Specifically, I wanted to share this with you because I wanted to discuss this video Roo Code, which, as I said, is a fork of Cline. Now let's dive into Roo Code. Basically, installation is Roo Code of Roo Code is very straightforward. You go to VS Code, you go to the extensions marketplace, you just look for Roo Code, and you just install it. This is the one. You can also read in the GitHub repository exactly what you have to do in terms of installation. But again, the easiest thing to do would be to go to the VS Code Marketplace and just install it from there. Now, we covered how to install. Now, I wanted to share with you before I dive into the features and I show you what I like about Roo Code. There is a Reddit post that was shared by the Roo Code team, actually, that compares between Roo Code and Cline. So I find it very interesting. Bear in mind that obviously it is biased because it was written by the Roo Code team. But here you have just a few of the features that Roo Code offers that Cline doesn't yet. So, for example, custom modes. At the moment in Cline, you have planning and acting modes. In Roo Code, you can decide and create different modes. So you can create, and it's like as if you're building different agents. Sorry. So you can have an architect mode. Let me show you. You can have an architect mode. You can have a coding mode, an asking mode, and a debugger mode, for example. So let's come here. Let's say I want to build another mode. So for each mode, you define the role definition. So for example, the coder, this is the default mode. You are Roo, a highly skilled software engineer with extensive knowledge in many programming languages, frameworks, design patterns, and best practices. Then you can define which API is going to be used in this specific mode. So for this specific coding agent, let's call it an agent, we want to use DeepSeek. Now we have the architect mode, the architect agent, that let's say for this, I want to use a reasoning model. So I can define that I'm going to use only OpenAI O1, for example, for this. Then for the ask, let's say I'm going to ask like sporadic questions about the code. I don't need anything crazy. So I can decide that I'm using for the ask agent, I can decide that I'm using a local model, Olama, using Olama, just something local. I don't want to pay for this, for example. So this is also an ability. I also built a debugger agent. And over here, you can define if you want to build more agents. So let's say, and this is very good because specificity and expertise, some people say, I think Adam Smith said it in one of his books. For those of you who don't know, Adam Smith is a very famous economist. So basically said that society moves forward when people specialize. So let's say we want to build QA agent. We can define a role. You are a quality assurance agent specializing in finding bugs and creating unit tests. You always make sure to be very detail oriented and seek edge cases in which the software might fail. So there you go. Let me close the dictation and seek edge cases in which the first software might fail. Then you just create the mode, and we have another mode, QA agent. So this is very powerful. Let's say I want to use Claude for this because I believe Claude is better in terms of QA. Let's go back here. So custom modes, smarter mode switching. This is also something that is very nice. So Roo Code knows how to switch between the modes automatically. So one alternative is you can switch the mode over here manually. But if you wrote a prompt that seems more relevant for a different agent, Roo Code will suggest moving to that specific agent automatically, which is very valuable. Another thing that is pretty cool is it can enhance prompts. So check this out. Write a Next.js to-do list app for me. Let's try again. Please write a Next.js to-do list app for me. So this can be my lazy prompt, and then I click this button to enhance the prompt, and you will see in a moment that it's just going to write a more expanded prompt. So this is instead of using the Anthropic prompt expander or just using ChatGPT in order to expand the prompt, you can just use this. It's currently generating the new prompt. I'm not sure. I think that it is using trying to connect to Claude, and I'm not sure that I have API credit over there. So let's move to DeepSeek. Okay, as you can see here, it wrote a detailed prompt. Develop a production-ready Next.js 14 to-do list application with TypeScript that implements the following feature. Full create C CRUD functionality with due dates, priority levels, and task categories, responsive UI with modern design systems, client-side state management, drag and drop task or reordering, undo, redo capabilities, loading states, optimistic updates for smooth UX, blah, blah, blah. As you can see, very comprehensive. And we can decide that we're starting to create this. We have here a bar that shows us the context window, how many tokens are in the context window, and the costs. Let's run the command. It's going to start building. Let's go back here. So deleting messages, remove the messages using the trash can icon. Choose to delete just the selected messages and its API calls. Not so crucial. Language selection. For me, it's not crucial because I'm always using English. What else? Terminal output control. So limit terminal lines passed to the model to prevent context overflow. This is also very cool. There are different modes related to the diffs. What else? Feature Cline offers that Roo Code doesn't, so Cline ignore. Not so crucial. Some people like using the Cline ignore files. Basically, Cline ignore files are files that you put in the root of the folder, and they provide context for a Cline or Roo Code, that context about the project, basically. So it's basically saving context about the project. Specifically, sorry, this was what I explained is Cline rules, not Cline ignore. Cline ignore is basically similar, but just for ignoring stuff in the project. I can see that they added this disclaimer, and they wrote added Cline ignore and disclosure. Cool. So anyway, I highly recommend that you check out the Reddit. This is specific Reddit, but is, I mean, this post is a post that compares between Roo Code and Cline. It's also interesting to read the comments. And I didn't go over all the features, so I highly recommend that you check it out if you're interested. Now let's go back to what I like about Roo Code. So first of all, it's a fork of Cline, and I really like Cline. It is fast. There are very little bugs. It can connect to all the major providers. And the benefit of Roo Code, I kind of showed them already in the table. Let me see if there is anything else over here that I wanted to cover. I think there are a lot of small nuances in Roo Code that I really like. So for example, you can configure different profiles in terms of the providers that you would like to use, and then use them in different modes. Over here, you have many different features that you can mess around with, which is very valuable. MCP servers, something that I don't use often. This is also something that is available on Cline. Basically, whatever, I think the Roo Code team, whatever they see in Cline that is working well, they just immediately clone it, which I think they also admit to do this. It's not as if they are ashamed in doing so, which is kind of funny, but it's part of the game when you build open source. Now, this is the most important part in Roo Code is the prompt. So you can define custom instructions for all modes. And as I showed you before, you can define mode-specific prompts, and you can build many different modes, so many different agents. You over here you have different support prompts. You can also ask Roo Code to explain specific parts of the code, fix bugs in the code, stuff like this. I guess that's pretty much it. Let me think if I covered everything. I think I covered everything. Let's start summarizing. This was just a kind of short video in which we covered different AI coding assistants. We have the IDEs, the leading IDEs, which are Windsurf and Cursor, besides VS Code. Obviously, I forgot to mention Copilot by GitHub. I highly recommend working with Windsurf. I often use Windsurf, but sometimes I use VS Code with the extensions. Now, in terms of the extensions, we have Cline, which, as you saw also in OpenRouter, is the most, I think, is the most popular extension out there. But Roo Code, which is a fork of Cline, is catching up. I saw many benefits in Roo Code that I like that I didn't see in Cline. By the way, Roo Code is also open source, so the Cline team can pretty much decide that they are going to just copy all the features back, which is good for the consumers. It's good for the I don't know if it's good for the teams, but it's good for the consumers. Yeah, I guess that's it. I highly recommend that you check it out. The ability to build different agents and modes is very powerful. The ability to switch between the modes is very valuable, because if you guys saw the blog post by the Aider team about the fact that basically when you combine an architect and a coder, usually it yields better results if you use different models, in opposing to if you have only one model doing all the work. So planning and coding and editing, the results are usually worse. So it makes a lot of sense. Also, if we follow Adam Smith's advice, and also if you follow the anecdotal, or not necessarily anecdotal, but the research that was done by the Aider team, it makes a lot of sense to restrict agents to specific responsibilities, provide them specific capabilities and specialties, because if we do so, it will probably yield better results. Obviously, it might mean the project is going to be more expensive, it can be more complex, but all in all, eventually, at the moment, I believe that if you create more agents, as long as you're able to manage them, I think it makes a lot of sense. I have these 4 agents. It's sufficient for my use cases, but obviously, if you guys have specific use cases, like I said, context is king. You can build specific agents, so copywriting agent, lead gen agent, whatever you would like, API connectors agent, whatever you would like. As this can prove to be very valuable. Yeah, I guess that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, obviously like and subscribe. Leave a comment below with your feedback and ideas. And if you're using Roo Code or Cline or any other AI coding assistant. And until next time, keep on automating.